Welcome to the Josh Dupuis Football Podcast. Here's your host, Josh Dupuis.
Hello and welcome to the Josh Dupuis Football Podcast. I'm Josh Dupuis, and with me as usual is the man behind the glass, Justin Prince. How was your vacation, Justin?
It was good, Josh. It was good. It was a good vacation. How was yours?
Mine was good. It was nice to see family and spend some time away, but it definitely sucked not being able to talk football, so I'm excited to get this episode going. You can reach us by emailing thejdfp@gmail.com, following us on Twitter @thejdfp, or searching the Josh Dupuis Football Podcast on both iTunes and YouTube. Now let's get to some news of the week.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen. Cannonball!
All right, so there is a lot of news this week with football in the NFL, starting off with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs have taken a one-year flyer on quarterback Terrell Pryor. What are your thoughts on Terrell Pryor, Josh?
I think this is a really good signing. It's under the radar. For the Chiefs, it may mean nothing. He might not even make the team. Andy Reid is known for being kind of like a quarterback whisperer in the league, from AJ Feely, Kevin Kolb, Detmer, like all these people that just stepped up and had such a big role for him when he was coaching them. It could be something huge with Terrell Pryor's skill set. He's fast, he's big. If he could just get his mechanics down and get his accuracy right, this could be a huge signing for them.
Yeah, I have to agree with you because I know originally he was taken in the supplemental draft, I believe, by the Oakland Raiders before, coming from Ohio State, and when he was playing before, it was kind of a disappointment. Hopefully, Andy Reid can turn around his career with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Exactly.
All right, as well, the Chicago Bears cornerback Tim Jennings was arrested on charges of DUI, reckless driving, and speeding. It is the first time being in trouble for him with the law since joining the league in 2006. What are your thoughts on this? Because DUIs, there's a lot of DUIs usually, but reckless driving is one thing that's sticking out kind of,
Yeah, it's going to be a matter of, I'm not 100% sure how they've handled every other case like this, with it being his first time in the league doing something wrong since he's been there, 2006. Like it's almost 10 years. I can see kind of a little bit of a smaller penalty than other people, but at the same time, you still have to be accountable for your actions, so he should get something.
Now, the St. Louis Rams offensive coordinator, Brian, I'm going to probably mispronounce this wrong, Schottenheimer, thank you, decided to leave the team to be the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for the University of Georgia. How is this going to be a big impact for the St. Louis Rams, in your opinion?
It's definitely huge when you have a team that is already trying to get their mojo going, to say. It's hard to switch another offensive coordinator to start a new, I don't know if they're going to start a new playbook, but I assume so, because with an offensive coordinator comes their own play style, the way they want to do things. So it's hard, especially as a quarterback, to go in and learn a new playbook and know all the different ins and outs of everything. So it's definitely a step back for their team.
Yeah, I have to agree with you as well on that, because I know this year, first off, Sam Bradford, then there was injuries going on with Sean Hill, as well as, I forget the third quarterback's name. I know his name is in my head.
Sam Bradford, Sean Hill, there was, I think it was Austin Davis.
Yes, Austin Davis. The whole quarterback situation, despite the Rams not having that great of a record, the team was doing okay with quarterbacks, especially with a bunch of injuries going on, Yep. So, and this should be a really interesting thing with the University of Georgia as well. Now as well, the Carolina Panthers defensive tackle Star Lotu Lili suffered a broken foot in the wild card win over the Arizona Cardinals and will miss the remainder of the playoffs. How is this going to impact the Panthers? Because this could be a major injury for the Panthers going into a playoff game against the Seattle Seahawks.
It's huge because what's Seattle known for? They're known for running the ball. And a defensive tackle, a giant defensive tackle sitting in the middle blocking up holes for you is huge against a team, obviously, that's trying to run the ball right at you. And without having him, it's going to be even harder for a team that already has a very little chance.
Yeah, because like as you mentioned, it is a run-heavy team, especially with beast mode Marshawn Lynch.
Yep.
It could be a very tough time for the Panthers. As well, we got some NFL draft news for you. Florida State quarterback Jameis Winston will forgo his junior and senior seasons and enter the NFL draft. Of course, a lot of people are projecting him as the second best quarterback in this draft behind Marcus Mariota, this year's Heisman Trophy winner. What are your thoughts on this decision by Jameis Winston?
I think it was kind of an obvious decision in my part. His stock isn't going to go up much higher than it already is. From everything I've read, he could go all the way up into the top 5. Like you can maybe he could get it all the way to the first pick, but with his off the field issues that he's had, I think that would be too much of a risk for him to go back and then get more. If he does something else wrong, then all of a sudden he drops into the end of the first round, and then he's getting less money. Like you said, a lot of people have Marcus Mariota ahead of him, and the biggest factor in that is his off the field issues. Because I've heard a lot of analysts saying if he was the same person as Marcus Mariota with his skill sets, though, that he would be a higher pick because his arm strength is all of his skill set is a little bit better.
Yeah, I have watched a lot of Jameis Winston here and there, and I can tell you, yeah, I have to agree with what you're saying, because with what a lot of people have been saying, I know originally when he won the Heisman Trophy, his parents had said he is staying for his junior year. But if he was to stay for his junior year, what if he gets injured? What if another thing happens with bad publicity? You know what
exactly.
I mean?
And it doesn't help his stock, I guess. Like the only thing maybe he would want to do is he ended his season off on a low note in the game against Oregon. He didn't play well, and then he kind of had some immature things to say on Twitter talking about baseball, and like I don't know. It was a little bit of a weird situation, but I think it's the right decision because he won't get much more. He can't get higher than he already is going to go.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. We got some more St. Louis Rams news as well, because Stan Kroenke, the owner of the Rams, is intending to move the team to Los Angeles with or without league approval. In fact, he bought some land on a development going on in, I believe, East Hollywood, where there was a horse racing track before, where it could be the location of a new NFL stadium. What are your thoughts, Josh, on this going on?
The biggest thing to me was that he said with or without the league's approval, he will be going. So it tells you right there that this could be one of the last years for St. Louis coming up, which to a lot of people in Los Angeles, that's a huge thing. They've wanted a team back there, and they deserve a team. For such a huge sports market, to not have a football team, I know they've had a couple different teams come through there and leave, but I think this is a huge thing for them, especially because they were the LA Rams before. It's great to have the LA Rams back.
Yeah, I have to agree with you with there being a football team, but I've heard a lot of different things, like right now with the Rams owner as well. He's apparently not wanting to speak to the mayor of St. Louis and city officials. You know, that's kind of a bad sign of what's going to happen, but at the same time, the NFL had said they do not want anyone moving to Los Angeles in 2015, and I know before the Oakland Raiders had that same situation where it didn't get owner approval but still moved, and I believe they had gone and received fines and sanctions on draft picks at the time, I believe. So, and that was in 1980, I believe. So, it could be an interesting situation with the Los Angeles football situation, as there was a lot of speculation about maybe the Chargers going there, maybe the Raiders, and maybe the Rams.
I think it's just the owner realizing that if there's a couple teams that want to go there, he's going to make a lot more money in Los Angeles having a team there. They'll have a lot more exposure than being a St. Louis football team. So I think he's trying to get there before anyone else gets there so he can make the money type thing. Yeah.
And now as well, there was some breaking news a few minutes ago with ESPN's Adam Schefter with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is reportedly dealing with a slight tear in his calf, in addition to a significant strain in his calf, which the later of which he has been suffering with all season. How is this going to affect him when they take on, I believe, the Dallas Cowboys in the upcoming weekend here?
Yeah, this is big because I'm sure he's fine. He's probably been dealing with pretty much the same thing this entire year. But any kind of injury to a player, especially when you get into the cold in Green Bay, it's not going to be easy for him to keep it warm, to keep it stretched out, and it can get tense at any moment. Just the one hit might take him off, and then they're playing backup quarterbacks that clearly Green Bay is not as good without Aaron Rodgers. I'll get into my pick later on in the segment or later on in the show, but this definitely makes the game more interesting.
Yeah, it definitely does, especially with this being potentially Ice Bowl 2 between Dallas and Green Bay coming up here. It is freezing in Green Bay coming up.
All right, for those of you that don't know, that is the theme song to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So that indicates that we are now on to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly for the past couple weeks since we missed a couple weeks. We'll start with the good. This people are going to call me a homer for this, but I have to go with the Eagles for the good. Them getting rid of Howie Roseman in the GM role is such a huge benefit to them, in my opinion. He came as he started as a GM for the Eagles with previously being just the salary cap guy. He has no football background at all, and it's kind of shown in the draft that they had last year. He's had some good picks, but I bet you it has a lot to do with the help that he's had from other people. This can only help the team. With Chip Kelly coming from college, knowing a lot of the players, this could be the last year that he has an in-depth look at who he knows is in there. So basically, as an Eagles fan, whatever Chip Kelly wants, I want to give him, because I think he's earned the right to have a decision in that matter. What do you think about that, Justin?
I think I don't know that much about the Eagles situation going on, but it was an interesting situation to see this with now Chip Kelly getting more power with the team going on. So it's going to be interesting to see what this team does with Chip Kelly having more power to make moves and draft who he wants.
Yeah, exactly. And it's big for them because now he gets to have somebody in there that he can work with, because there was talks all throughout the season that they weren't seeing eye to eye, that they were kind of butting heads with some decisions. I don't know whose decision it was to draft Marcus Smith in the first round, but that was clearly not good. I think he saw the field like 3 times the entire year, and a first-round pick needs to be somewhat of an impact on your team, and he couldn't sniff playing time. So moving on now to the bad. The Jets firing Rex Ryan, in my opinion, is a bad thing. A lot of people might look at it as, well, the Jets have been so bad for so long and all of that. But to me, if you just look more in detail at that, Rex Ryan, when he had a good team, he had a good defense. It wasn't a spectacular team by any means, but he brought them to the Super Bowl, to the AFC Championship. He was doing pretty well as a coach. I bet if you ask any fan, any NFL fan that's not a diehard NFL fan that knows everything, and you ask them, name me 5 players on the Jets, they would probably have a hard time, especially if you say not name Geno Smith or Michael Vick. They're going to have a hard time trying to name 5 different players on that team, but yet he still got that team to come out and play so hard every single game. And it didn't matter their record. It didn't matter what the score was. Nothing. They played hard every single game for Rex Ryan. And that's hard to find, especially if you're a struggling team, to get your team up every single game and to play hard for you. That's huge. And I just believe he didn't really have any help in the personnel department the last at least 3 years that he was there.
I have to agree with you at the same time that they wanted to play their hearts out for him and try to win, because I know he is a player's coach and in fact is in consideration for a decent amount of jobs like the 49ers and so forth, the San Francisco 49ers, of course. Jim Harbaugh, now the head coach at the University of Michigan.
That'd be great for the 49ers if they get him. Any team that really gets him, right? Like he's a great defensive mind, but he's also, like you said, a player's coach. He's going to get everybody up and ready to go. And that's huge. That's what you need for a team. I think the team that would benefit the most from him is Atlanta Falcons. They've they have some good pieces, but they're known. If you watched Hard Knocks this year, they talked about how they wanted to be, they didn't want to be known as such a soft team. They wanted to be tougher and all that. So they tried getting penalties at the beginning of the year to make them look tough. But it was clear that they were just hiding behind the fact that they actually weren't that tough of a team. And with Rex Ryan coming in there, that would be huge for them. I think that should be the number one thing they go for, because he'll add a toughness. He won't let people just do whatever they want and shy away from tackles. He's someone that would not put up with that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, moving on to the last one, the ugly. This is one I'm sure you can agree with, since you're a Detroit Lions fan. The refs picking up the pass interference. Pete Morelli was the referee that said there was no call. The thing to me that stood out the most is if one ref calls that it's a pass interference, and then you as a head referee say no, there's no call, but then don't really give an explanation to anybody, and it's just kind of like everybody, the announcers, all the analysts, everybody's just kind of like, well, that was. And then even after the game, everybody that has talked about that play has said, yeah, that was definitely a flag. What do you think about that one?
I right now have a lot of different thoughts in my head. That game, especially at the end with officiating, was a mess. Yes, I know it was balanced for the most part until that point where the flag started flying for Detroit, especially with that picked up flag. That changed the momentum to give Dallas the chance to win the game with 2 minutes to go.
Yeah.
If that was called, because I know a lot of different people have said that is at minimum defensive holding, that would have given the Lions more time to run down the clock and try and secure a playoff victory for the first time since beating Dallas in the 1992 playoffs, 1991-92 season. And there was a lot of different plays, too, that were ridiculous, you know? There were holding calls that weren't called, like on the 4th and 6th conversion.
Yeah, exactly.
Like to Jason Witten, there was an ignored holding call, which technically there's a lot of holding calls missed, but that was a big one. Yeah. Another big one.
It led to a touchdown by Terrence Williams, that a 4th and 6, if that is not called, that holding is called, they drive back. Or if he doesn't get held, he goes and he hits the quarterback Lions ball, and then they don't end up getting a touchdown. That's a huge play for them.
And on the touchdown, too, there was a holding call as well not called on that touchdown play that I noticed. Like, it was one of the main things I noticed and was screaming, where is the holding call, and why aren't we seeing a yellow flag and push back 10 yards?
Yeah, I was watching that game with my buddy Mike, and he is a Lions fan too, and that's what I kept saying to him is, well, there's another missed holding call. There's another missed holding call. And I'm not even a Lions homer at all. I'm an Eagles fan. I just enjoy watching other football games, and I kept saying, well, there's another holding call. Why aren't they calling this? It just seemed really, really fishy. And to hear all of these different analysts from NFL.com, from ESPN, all these different places talk about how can this possibly have not been called, to hear the NFL come out and say that they missed that call and they missed the pass interference. There was 2 blatant calls. It's just, you don't want to talk too much about people throwing the game on purpose, like the refs having bets on one team or whatever. But it's when things like that happen and it's so obvious to everybody except for the refs on the field, it's kind of crazy to me. And
yeah,
what sucks the most too for the Lions fans, they've been through so much of different calls that just come out of nowhere that the refs kind of screw them over. Just in the past few years too. For example, the Calvin Johnson process of the catch rule, where he caught the touchdown and then put the ball on the ground, and they said you have to continue the process even though it was clearly a catch. And then Jim Schwartz throwing a challenge flag and then getting a penalty for it because it wasn't a challengeable play. It seems like so many different things just in the past few years have really eaten the Lions' chances of doing stuff.
Yeah, there has been a lot of different stuff. In fact, one thing I just thought about too was 2 different things actually. One thing, Mike Pereira, the former head of officiating for the NFL, was on that Fox broadcast,
yes.
And even he was questioning, why is this picked up flag? And one thing as well, did you see that Des Bryant had ran onto the field?
That's the other thing. It runs on the field with his helmet off.
That should have been an unsportsmanlike conduct.
15-yard penalty, automatic first down.
Yeah.
Yep. And somehow he's not penalized for that. They pick up a flag, and it's crazy. There's so many different things that are just so questionable about that game, and for the league to come out after and say it. And I don't know if this is 100% fact or not, but I'm pretty sure I heard that the refs that were in that game were just a mixed bunch of other teams of the refs that were put together for that game, and I don't know why, but that, like, it was clear that they weren't all together on that one.
It's a lot of people have been saying Detroit versus everybody. It was kind of feeling like that, but at the same time, it was kind of shock at the same time. I'm not even sure what exactly else to say.
Yeah, it was bad. All right, moving on to the picks of the week. Who do we have first, Justin?
First off is the Baltimore Ravens, who defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers, where the Steelers had won the division and then Baltimore just won in the wild card, taking on the New England Patriots. The Patriots are a favorite at a +7 favorite. So what are your thoughts on this game, Josh?
I think this is going to be a great game. It sucks going back to last week that Pittsburgh didn't have Le'Veon Bell. That would have made the game a lot more. He's their best player for the most part. Andre Brown is up there too, or Antonio Brown, sorry, is up there too. But it definitely wasn't good for them. But so Baltimore, Joe Flacco has been insane in the playoffs. He's the past 9 playoff games he's played since 2010. He's 168 of 182 for 2,271 yards, and that's 20 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. It's a 106.0 rating. For his level of play increases so much once they get into the playoffs. It's pretty crazy, and I don't personally understand it. Why he can't be the same quarterback in the regular season, but I'm sure Baltimore isn't minding right now that they're in the playoffs. I have the game going, the Patriots winning, but I think it's going to be the +7. I don't think they're going to win by more than 7. I think it could go down to maybe a 27-24 Patriots game. That's my opinion on that.
That's my thought on that too. I was thinking about that, but at the same time, the Patriots a lot this season have exposed teams that look amazing on defense or amazing on offense. What's going to happen with this? Are they going to expose something with the Baltimore Ravens that might throw them into a blowout victory? I'm going to go +7 as well, but there's a lot of different factors in this game coming up with the Patriots dominating this season in a lot of different games.
And that like you said, they've taken teams that have played really well on offense, and with the additions of Revis and Brandon Browner, they've been able to play a little bit more of. They can rely on them to just cover their best receivers, and then they can play the run. They can mix and do some different blitzing schemes and things like that. They've done a lot better this year than they have in a long time. Plus, they have Gronk healthy. It's helping them out a lot, and yeah, they should be able to win this game, but you never know with a Baltimore and Patriots playoff game. They always seem to be pretty close.
Yeah, and now one of the other divisional games coming up are the Carolina Panthers and the Seattle Seahawks. We mentioned this before. Seattle is the favorites at an 11-point favorite. What are your thoughts on this game?
To me, last week, if you watched the Carolina Panthers play, they barely covered against the Arizona Cardinals team that was led by Ryan Lindley, and it's clear that Ryan Lindley shouldn't be an NFL quarterback. So just seeing that they could barely cover against an Arizona team with like a 4th string quarterback, to me, I don't get how they could possibly come in and beat the Seahawks. And to add to that, if you watched that game, Cam Newton, it seemed like every time he'd hit the ground, he'd get up wincing in pain. He didn't seem comfortable. All those from the car accident, from like all the injuries he's been dealing with all season, it just seems like it's all catching up to him. And with such a physical Seahawks team, this is definitely a hard game for them.
It is going to be very hard. Yeah, there is a lot of different things going on. You have Star Lotulelei.
It's a hard one.
Injured. On top of that, you have, like you said, Cam Newton suffering from injuries all season. And when I watched that game, it seemed like I was going to be surprised if Arizona won that game, to be honest, because
Yeah.
Arizona was had a chance to win that game for much of the game because Carolina couldn't
Put it away,
produce
yeah.
with even Ryan Lindley, who was struggling for much of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, but I am definitely feeling like Seattle is the team to beat because Seattle may as well make it all the way to the Super Bowl at this point.
Yeah, they're definitely my favorite to make it to the Super Bowl, and especially if you look at this game, the Panthers, they have basically one weapon on offense, and that's Kelvin Benjamin. But with Sherman taking him completely out of the game, what are they going to rely on? They'll have to go to their running game because they really don't have another receiver that's been consistently proving that he can beat one-on-one coverage and everything. And the Seahawks ranked second in rushing defense. Once Bobby Wagner returned from his injury, they only allowed one rusher to gain over 50 yards in the game. So the Seahawks defense should shut down Stewart in the running game, no problem. I can see this game getting really, really ugly and the Seahawks winning by more than 11. So I'll go Seahawks minus 11.
With this being Seattle at home, Legion of Boom, at KeyBank Stadium or whatever the name of the stadium is, I can't even remember the name right now. I have to agree with you. Seattle winning this game by at least 14 points and Cam Newton getting picked off at least twice in the game. It is definitely going to be Seattle moving on to the NFC conference game. And now the other NFC divisional game is the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. Packers are a 6-point favorite, and I'm going to say this right now. A lot of people are considering this to be Ice Bowl 2 because in 1967, I believe, they played in freezing cold temperatures. It is being compared to that right now because it is freezing cold in Green Bay and everywhere up here in the north. So what are your thoughts on this game?
To me, it's crazy because, in my opinion, Dallas shouldn't be moving on. But that was a topic we already talked about. We can move on from that. But even though they shouldn't be moving on, I think they have a better chance at beating the Packers than the Lions would have just because of, especially in Green Bay, just because of the way that their offense has been playing, the different weapons they have. But at the exact same time, with the home field advantage, you've seen so many teams come into Green Bay and just slip and slide all over the place and can't seem to handle their grass. The Eagles have the exact same turf as them, but when they went there, they just couldn't get their feet and they kept slipping everywhere, sliding. It's crazy. I don't know what they do to it, how they keep it up, what goes on, but Green Bay seems to just be perfectly fine with it and other teams are just sliding all over the place. So it's such an underrated advantage for them. But like I said, I can see Dallas putting up some points. With this recent news of Aaron Rodgers in the tear in his calf, you never know how he's going to come out if he gets hit and knocked out of just a series, a quarter, a half. You don't know. So it could go in Dallas's way. But with everything being accounted for, with saying, Aaron Rodgers is going to play the full game, to me, it's going to be Packers -6 just due to the fact that they have such an explosive offense. I think their defense is a lot better than Dallas's defense. I think their offense is better than Dallas's offense. So just to me, that right there tells me that Packers, and I'm doing -6 just by the home field advantage part of it.
I'm going with this because you mentioned a lot with the matchups. If Detroit would have won, they would have went to Seattle, Detroit, and then Carolina would be in Green Bay. But with this going on right now, you have Dallas and you have Green Bay. In my opinion, it is going to, yes, I believe the Packers are going to win this game, but I believe the Cowboys are going to cover the spread. It's going to be +6 because it could be, like you mentioned, the turf. A lot of different times, dome teams have a tougher time, it seems, on grass turf.
Yeah, in Dallas, Texas, you playing in Dallas, that's the huge thing for me too, is a team from Dallas where it's going to be hot and everything, and then you go to playing outside in Green Bay, and like you said, the Ice Bowl too, it could be freezing cold. They're not used to it. I know no players are really used to it, but when you're living in a place that has it, when you're practicing in it, and when you've played many games in it, it's definitely an advantage. But I agree with you. I could very well see Dallas winning. Like I said, I could very well see them covering the points, but it's one of the games you don't really know.
Yeah, those are the one. That's the thing. I see Green Bay winning this game, but I don't see it being 7 points or more or a blowout or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the last game for the divisional round is the Indianapolis Colts, led by Andrew Luck, taking on the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning. The Broncos are a 7-point favorite, and this could be a very interesting matchup once again. Few times this season, I believe it has been Andrew Luck versus Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, of course, played for the Colts a lot of time. What are your thoughts on this game?
This is like Peyton Manning. I never know what to think of him when it comes to, especially playoffs. Usually he's amazing in the regular season, and then playoffs come, he plays pretty well. Then as soon as he plays outside and it's cold, he seems to not play that well. But this year, just at the very end of the season, there was such a decline in his arm strength that, to me, I don't know if he's fighting some injuries. I don't know if it's just his age is catching up to him, what it is. But Broncos finished third in passing offense, but the last 4 games, Manning only had 3 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. To me, that is such a huge stat for a team that was known for having such a dynamic passing offense. The Colts, this surprised me really a lot. The Colts finished first in passing offense. I didn't know that. But to me, Luck throws a lot of interceptions, a lot of questionable interceptions in the big games too. So it could even out. I think C.J. Anderson has been a great improvement for the Broncos in the running game, and he should have a good game out there against Indianapolis. If I'm going to bet on this, I'm going to go Broncos, but +7. I would probably stay away from this game too, just because you don't know what Peyton's going to come out there, if he's going to throw those questionable picks. What do you got on that?
With this one, I personally would, if it was pick a team, I would cover a team, like try and pick both,
Yeah, exactly. Cover,
because it's
both,
one of those kind of things, and because I'm going to also go the +7 on the spread. If I had to pick a winner, and I have to go Broncos as well, because it will be tough, because most likely the winner will take on the Patriots, most likely. But at the same time, Indianapolis, as long as they don't fumble the ball, they're going to win this game. And might have a chance to win this game, I should say. Because a lot of times there was a lot of fumbles, and they kept having to switch up running backs a lot during their game, I believe, against Cincinnati it was. So it was a very interesting game last week, but yeah, Broncos +7 as well.
Yeah, I think that the thing that stood out to me, that the reason I'm picking the Broncos, is that Peyton Manning, he'll probably throw a pick or two. I think Andrew Luck will probably throw an interception or two, because that's what he's done in kind of the big games. Last year in the playoffs, he threw, I think, 3 interceptions against the Chiefs. They were down huge. He ended up coming back and playing a lot better in the second half, but it's the interceptions. If a team capitalizes off of the interceptions, and they already have a pretty good offense with a good running game, I think that Peyton Manning might throw some bad balls. Luck will throw some bad balls, but the Denver defense is the difference with having Aqib Talib, having Chris Harris Jr. at your corners. They have the playmakers that can jump on those balls, catch them, do something with it, a lot more than Indianapolis does. And then also on offense, they have more weapons with Demaryius Thomas, with Emmanuel Sanders has been playing well. Like I said, C.J. Anderson running the ball. The Colts don't really have that big running back, or that main running back that people are afraid to play against. And I just think that Denver has too many weapons for Indianapolis to be able to handle, especially mile high, where teams seem to struggle at times too. That's the thing though. If Peyton struggles in his home, I don't know what's going to happen. But and that's another thing that just completely boggles my mind, is when Peyton's choosing a team to go to, why, unless he just is completely oblivious to his stats against or in cold, windy weather and all that. I don't know why he would choose to go play in Denver at home, where he's going to have to deal with that kind of a weather all the time.
So before we wrap up today's show, I have some breaking news coming out from Albert Breer. The Chicago Bears have officially hired Saints Director of Player Personnel Ryan Pace as their new general manager. As of 2 minutes ago, tweeted out by Albert Breer. Of course, Breer is part of the NFL Network. What are your thoughts on this just coming out a couple minutes ago with their new GM now, with being Ryan Pace from the Saints? for the Bears.
It's a step in a new direction for them. It's going to be, we're going to have to see how it pans out in the future. I don't know much about Ryan Pace, obviously. But they needed to do something. They needed to shake up something with the amount of talent they had on offense, and the lack of ability they had to put teams away, to get touchdowns, to do all these different things. They needed to shake things up and start from the ground up and really just try to rebuild this team. Yeah,
with Mark Trestman as head coach, I know he's been the head coach for a few seasons, was in the CFL with the Montreal Alouettes as their head coach, and was considered prior to that an NFL quarterback whisperer, and now it's completely turned into an interesting situation with that, where it is just, with the new GM now, is his job jeopardized? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and another thing we missed in the last 2 weeks that we didn't get really to talk about is Jim Harbaugh. He going to Michigan. What did you think about that? Him going instead of staying in the NFL, he decides to go to college, which obviously, like, I know colleges can pay you more. He went to Michigan. It's a big thing for him. But are you surprised at all that he didn't try to get an NFL job before?
I wasn't surprised about this because a couple things. One, you said money.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan,
was it $8 million a year?
$8 million a year for him, I believe it was. And second, Jim Harbaugh, he's a great coach. He is a winner wherever he has gone and so forth. But it felt like in San Francisco, it was becoming a very rough situation, where it felt like he was pushing too hard, you know what I mean?
Yep.
In that, and that's why, of course, I mentioned Rex Ryan potentially there, because he was a player's coach in that.
And his, like you said, Jim Harbaugh's coaching style will be better in college. With he likes to get in your face and yell at you and all that stuff. And professional athletes that are getting paid millions of dollars don't want to listen to somebody yelling at them, whereas young men in college are more easily will listen to that type of stuff, because they want to better themselves. They know that he knows what it takes to be in the NFL, and he was successful in the NFL, so they're going to listen to him. They're going to respond positively to what he has to say.
Yeah, I have to say that as well. I know already one player has already said, I'm going to be transferring, because he had been told you can stay with stipulations or transfer. It's going to be interesting to see how he builds up this team for the University of Michigan. Yeah, and Michigan
being such a big team that over the years has been pretty good. It's good for them to get out of this crappy zone, if I could say that, and get into some of a little bit better of a game.
Yeah, and one last thing. I believe Mark Trestman actually was fired a couple weeks ago, pardon me. I know. And one thing that just came out from Adam Schefter about that move with Ryan Pace, Tom Brule, he is now participating in the interview of Todd Boyles, I believe is how it's pronounced, for the head coach position. So
nice.
Lots of different things coming up with interest.
Carolina, are you talking about Arizona's?
Yes, he is Arizona's offensive coordinator, I believe.
Nice.
So lots of different things coming up right now. So
and he came from the Eagles too. He was Eagles DB coach, and then when Andy Reid was there, and then when they fired Juan Castillo as the defensive coordinator. He then was the defensive coordinator, and then the defense seemed to be playing a little bit better. But then at the end of that season, they fired Andy Reid, so they got rid of the whole staff, and then Chip Kelly came in. So they didn't even really give him a chance to be defensive coordinator, and he's clearly earned a chance at a head coaching spot.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to wrap up today's show?
Yeah. First, I'm just going to say that we didn't get a chance to get into fan questions. I did get some emails asking some questions. We will do that next week. So if you want to get your questions in, just email thejdfp@gmail.com. Also, follow us on Twitter @thejdfp, or search for us, The Josh Dupuis Football Podcast, on both iTunes and YouTube. For Justin Prince, I'm Josh Dupuis. Thanks for listening.